I'd like to call the Park Board meeting for Tuesday, October 15th, 2019 to order. Roll call, please.
Mark Williams.
Here.
Mark Castonia.
Here.
Deborah Lundberg.
Here.
Justin Miner.
Here.
Aideen Hess.
Here.
Chris Serbel.
Here.
J.C. Desmond. Here.
Please stand for the pledge. Is there any corrections or additions to the agenda? If not, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Comments from the public? I don't see anybody here this evening, so we'll just keep moving on to written communications. I have one. Hi Rex, we received your letter about the July 23rd meeting at Smith Park. What a great opportunity. We were out of town or would have been there. Just want you to know how much we appreciate our park system in Ashwaubenon and your overseeing it all. We particularly enjoy Sherwood Forest, where we often walk or bike, and enjoyed the end of summer blast at Ashwaubenon Park. Thank you, Tina Uffelman on Dew Lane. Anybody else have anything? Okay, we'll move on to action on the consent agenda, which consists of the Park and Rec Board regular meeting on August 20th and the Park and Rec and Forestry September expenditures.
I do have a correction on the minutes of the 20th, where it reads the number of dogs at the doggy dip. It should read 386.
What does it say in there?
650.
Okay. That would be a lot of dogs. Can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
Move to approve.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Action items. A, discussion and possible action on the 2019 lake report.
Melody Escoto will give this year's lake report.
Hello.
Good evening.
So you have the lake report in front of you for this year. I guess I just want to start by saying we had another successful, safe summer, which is always important. This summer did not come without its challenges. Unfortunately, and we have no control, but Mother Nature just wasn't on our side for a good portion of the beginning of the summer. So that was one of our challenges kind of starting out. The beginning of June was just, it was not summer weather, and that's kind of hard to start when you're only a 10-week operation and you lose a good, 2.5 weeks in the beginning. That's hard. But overall, the kids did great. We did have a good summer. July picked up and stuff like that, so that was helpful. But the weather just really was hard to start out with. So kind of out of the 72 operating days that I had, we did not open completely 5 of those days, and then we had to close early 10 days. So that's kind of hard. Like I said, only being 10 weeks. In going with that, I did have, I think most pools in the area, you guys have already heard, are having lifeguard struggles, and sometimes it feels like finding a lifeguard is finding a unicorn. But I don't always have that issue. I guess more of my issue this year was, not always, you're right, but more of my issue with this year was, unfortunately with the weather, a lot of my kids are college kids and they come back and this is the time to work. And so losing a whole weekend for them is a big deal. So a lot of them were telling me I'm gonna have to find a second job to kind of compensate for, those hours. But I luckily convinced them not to do that. I worked with David Rohrig and Rachel at the community center, and some of my lifeguards then started supervising community center rentals and stuff like that, just so I wouldn't lose them. So they stuck around, so that was good. Another challenge, but a good challenge to have, is this year I had 8 or 9 returning lifeguards on their third and fourth summer, which is kind of unheard of with lifeguards to have them coming back that long. And then they want to be moving into more of a supervisory role. So we kind of developed a lifeguard supervisor program, a lifeguard for them. And so that was nice. That was good to see the lifeguards kind of step up and become one of those. But overall, we did have, some really good days there. We had 20 rentals, and in compared to 2017, we had 27. The only difference, we had 25 this year, but unfortunately, because of the weather, some of those rentals had to be canceled. So we were relatively the same as we have been. This year at the lake, we brought some new things in, as I try and do each year. We added an additional raft out there. So we had one raft, and then we had a mat. Unfortunately, as loved as that mat was, it got loved to the end, and it just couldn't withhold the amount of kids that were on it, and I was constantly fixing it. The raft is just a better option out there. I bought that within our budget this year, so we have 2 rafts out there. We did add an additional basketball hoop, which is used a great deal and was an easy add out there. The other thing that we added this year, and if you drove through the lake, you probably saw it, was an additional sunshade. This was a far larger sunshade than we have out there right now. And we kind of put it on a prime piece of real estate out there, sun real estate, so we were a little concerned. But it was used a great deal. I was actually really excited to see how many people were kind of going under there, kind of more conscious of sun safety and stuff like that. So it was used a great deal out there. Those were the things that we added this year. In this coming year, our diving boards, unfortunately, have lived their lives. They haven't been replaced since before Jeremy. I talked to Jeremy about it. He's never replaced the diving boards prior to me. We refinished them ourselves this year, and unfortunately, that just isn't holding up. So in this upcoming budget, I am asking for 2 new diving boards to be put out at the lake. In regards to our numbers, you have them in front of you. Ticket sales were, like I said, July kind of picked up. We were about 1,500 people short in June. So that's a lot of people, and that, the rest of the summer went on fine as it normally did, but we lost the majority of our people in that opening season when people are getting excited about swimming. So we were short this year, patron-wise, but it kind of added up as far as ticket revenue and stuff. You can see that in our expenses, traditionally Rex and I always make sure that we include all expenses, our water, our gas and our electric.
This is on page 11.
Sorry, yes, our gas and our electric. I guess Rex can probably speak more to it, but unfortunately we don't have our water bill quite yet. So this is what all expenses.
It's because Green Bay Water Utility took over the billing for Ashwaubenon. All the water bills now are done by Green Bay Water Utility, and they're still trying to figure out processes, working with the villages. They want to do all of the seasonal billings at one time, and we're trying to work with them, saying that the lake billings need to be done earlier because we need to do it for this report, which may or may not affect budget and costs and pricing for the upcoming season, because we need it before the budget season is approved. So still working through that with Green Bay Water Utility.
So these are where our numbers are lying as of now. I'm assuming that once we get our water bill, it's going to kind of be a wash. That kind of tends to be where we're at.
I would say historically, if you've got your water fill up and flow, so there's 2 meters. There's one to fill the lake up, and then there is an inlet at the north side of the lake that allows water to flow constantly through the summer. Water in on one end, and it leaves through a storm sewer on the other end. So there's a constant flow of water. The water flow is increased during really hot stretches, and during rainy or cool stretches, the water flow is decreased on that meter. Typically, those 2 meters combined, on average, I'm just going to throw a number out, are usually around $20,000. Somewhere between 18 to 22
You
So
can
I'm-
see on the next
yeah.
page, you can see there's the trends of like
Yeah.
what it's been through the years, so you can kind of get a guess of what that bill is. And that's kind of the one that we don't have in there, and we'll just,
So for total expenses, like I said, it says to be determined, and Mel did a good job of trying to do all these great spreadsheets on things, but for total expenses, if you probably want to add about another $20,000 onto that. Again, it's going to be give or take. I'm thinking because it was a cooler summer, and overall, it's probably going to be a little bit less than 20, but 20 is probably a good number to put in there.
on all the sheets that I've given you, you can see on page, what was it, 12? That's on page 11, on the back side of 11, just throughout the years, what the numbers have been and how we kind of line up with that. It's pretty similar. We, watched our staff expenses, and I did cut personnel and stuff like that when we could. The other problem is when we're only 10 weeks, we want to be open as much as we can possibly be open. We want to, we are a service to the community. We want to be there. Unfortunately, sometimes the numbers just don't pan out to have all of our lifeguards there. So we have a kind of a cutting system that we do, levels that we stay at, so that there's enough lifeguards for the people that are there. And we try and always have enough lifeguards so that we stay safe. But otherwise, the admissions on page 13 just kind of gives you an overview of the season passes. We don't really sell any season passes in August, so there isn't. So in the August section, it's the preseason passes that we sell before the lake opens. And that's just kind of where our numbers lie. Unfortunately, with the weather being not great in that May, June timeframe, those ones weren't always as high as they normally are with our season passes. That rainy weather just didn't spark the swim bug in people like we hope. And then concessions were the same. That's on the following page, just kind of a breakdown of each month. We did take out some concession items this year. We kind of tried to streamline it a little bit, took out some things. I'm always trying to add new things. We did some walking tacos this year that were new, switched up a couple of our ice creams up and did Choco Tacos and that kind of stuff. But traditionally, our cafe is just, the nachos and the pretzels and pizza and stuff like that.
So you've got a lot of numbers here in front of you. You've got admission numbers, you've got numbers broken down by, different forms of revenue as well as expenses, as well as a real breakdown of concession items. I guess we are here to take any questions you guys may have on lake operations, what went well, what didn't go well.
A question that I have, is the high school pool open during the summer?
It is, during the summer, things change a little at the pool, so it pretty much switches straight to swimming lessons all day, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. we do swimming lessons. On the weekends, it hasn't shown to be used as much on the weekends for open swim, and we are trying to encourage people to go out to the lake. So we did have it limited hours the first year that we were open, and it just didn't pan out to be worth the expense of the lifeguards versus what we were making. So it is open, but it's just swimming lessons, and there's noon hour lap swim and things like that.
And there's no open sessions during the week, Monday through Friday?
Not at the pool.
There's open swim in the afternoon, open to the public, Monday through Friday in the summer, but not anything on the weekends.
I was just wondering, because that was one of the comments on the surveys. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So I see, you had talked about, there's a note here that we're competing with Duck Creek Quarry, which is very true. Do you know what their ticket, or they don't have a ticket, right?
They are free
that's just
operation.
free. Okay.
Correct.
I just thought
So
that as a-
when we market that and when we put on our Facebook posts at the beginning of the year and whatnot, we're marketing it more towards families. It's a full-service operation. We're providing a lifeguard service, we're providing concession operations. I think we're providing a little bit of a different experience than the quarry, which to me, my kids are good swimmers, but a lot of smaller kids, I would not have brought my own kids to the quarry as a smaller, when they were smaller. And that's kind of how we're marketing it is, it's a little bit different experience for safety-wise, because it's, with the lifeguard service. Not that, it's foolproof, it's still good to be watching the kids, but I think it's a little bit safer situation. Not that the quarry is unsafe, but, ours has that lifeguard service available to people.
Yes, yeah, okay. And then I just have, so this is my first year looking at this stuff, so have we done like a ticket price increase or anything like recently or in the, I haven't been going to Ashwaubenon May, but I mean, have we done that in recent years, or had the price remained constant over the last?
We have made changes. I think last year and this year, we've remained the same. We did do a price increase, I want to say in 2017. Based on what other pools in the area are charging, we are right around where they should be. So based on Green Bay, De Pere, those municipalities and what they charge for their pools, we're right along with them. So no, in the past 2 years we haven't, but I don't know that we're at the 5 and the 4 mark. I don't know that we could go much.
If we went higher, quite honestly, JC, I think we'd start to lose people. I mean, you always lose people when your price goes higher, but I think we'd lose more than we gained in terms of that additional revenue. Right now, our costs for kids, if you live in Ashwaubenon, for a child, it is $3 and then $4 for an adult.
And that's for like the day?
And that's for the whole day. And then if you're a non-resident outside of Ashwaubenon, it's $4 or $5. So I think if we went up on either of that, I think that would really start to drive people to some of the other opportunities that are out there. And there's more opportunities that are going to be out there for people to go to. So I think we always have to be, taking a look at our operations and what amenities we have and what we're serving. Because, I mean, not only is there the quarry, but Bay Beach is going to be opening up, and there's a lot of talk about that, the beach at Bay Beach. Some people are very excited about that. De Pere, City of De Pere is going to be having 2 water parks that are being built very shortly. So there's going to be a lot of options within, a couple additional years for aquatic activities. I think we're a little bit more unique, than some of the other ones, but, my own biased opinion. But I think that price point is where I'd be real cautious about going higher on it, I guess.
We did do some different things this year that we haven't done in the past. We sponsored with Unison Credit Union this year for their Splish Splash Bash. Say that 7 times. And they brought in, we did some media, we did some radio and stuff like that. So they do like a summer splash bash at different places that they sponsor these, and they have big events. So we paired them with our luau party this year, and they had lots of media, we did a lot of news interviews and stuff like that, and they sponsored all of our prizes, and we ran games for them all day.
We had really nice attendance.
We did. We had, on a Tuesday, I think we had over 800 people there, which is not, a normal Tuesday. So that was really a fun new thing that we did. We also, I paired with a lady that does log rolling. At the old pool, we used to have a log rolling class. That log has since been retired and didn't come over to the new pool, but came out to the lake, and it just hasn't been used. So we had our maintenance guys kind of update our log, and we did some log rolling events out at the lake, and we paired one of those with one of the food truck rally that's out at the lake now, and we had a lake event out there with the food truck rally, which brought a ton of people. The lake event night for the food truck rally was really successful.
I think that was over 1,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had,
Close to it.
yeah, we had an additional, that many people coming from 4 to 8, and so it was really great to see. We had a theme night, we did a pirate theme night for that food truck rally, and now this year coming up, we will do more like 4 lake events, right? 3?
3, possibly 4.
Yeah, 3 of the food truck rallies will be lake events, so that'll be really fun out there. More activities and trying to pull people in as much as we can out there.
Okay.
Any questions?
Just one more quick question for you, Melody. So I know in the past we've adjusted the lifeguards' pay scales. Does that still seem to be effective in keeping them? Or is that something that would need to be addressed by next year?
We changed their pay scales last year, so this was new for them this year. I think that we're not at the top, but we're not far from it. I know some other municipalities that do pay a little bit more. I'm very blessed in the kids that we have and that I'm able to, we were short this year. We were short 2 lifeguards, but in the fact that I am so intertwined with the high school, I'm able to kind of pick my kids and then have my own lifeguarding class. And so I did that at the beginning of the summer. I went into his office and said, I'm throwing a lifeguarding class together, just letting you know. And so I created my own lifeguards at the beginning of the season so I didn't have a problem. And I think that our pay-wise, we're where we need to be at this time. Could it change next year? Sure. But it's kids working at that age, it's just a hard age. You know, parents aren't requiring their kids to work a lot now that they play sports or something like that. So that's probably my biggest battle, is just kids not needing to work. So.
One of the things that I'd like to see, because it amazes me and we don't really realize it, is how many rescues that they perform in a year. I think that'd be nice to see and track, just so that we get a handle of the safety that they provide.
And I do track that. I just don't enter in here, but I can. This year we had 28 saves. So that's, although it might seem like a high number, last year we had 32, and the year before that we had 48. So we're going down, which is a great thing, and that tells me that the lifeguards are doing more of what we train them to do, which is preventative lifeguarding, which is the catching that kid, you know, before he gets too deep and saying, hey, buddy, turn around, you're going too deep, you can't swim that well, or the kid that's jumped off the diving board 13 times, and hey, take a seat, take a breather, before it turns into a problem. So the less we keep getting means the more preventative lifeguarding that those lifeguards are doing out there. So yes, it was.
It's just showing
Good season.
the public that, you know, we're doing our job and we want to make sure we got responsible lifeguards out there, and they're doing a great job. So, I mean, it's nice to see that. I mean, I'm sad to see it, but I was amazed when I heard it a couple months ago or whatever it was. Then Rex and I had talked about it, and it's like, I never thought that we had that many ever.
Yep. And we track it from my perspective, we track it because we want to know where it happens. Where does that always happen? If there's a key spot, just a spot in the lake that we know that the kids are swimming out too far, or maybe it drops off sooner, or whatever it is, we track where it is, and then we track all summer long. It's kind of not a game, but like the lifeguards track who has the most saves and things like that. So 28 this year.
It's amazing. That's the importance of having the lifeguards, though. I mean, I'm happy that we're saving them, to be very honest with you, so.
Yep, they do a really good job. They train very hard all summer long. I train once a week with them. Every Tuesday morning, they come in early. We switch it up. Sometimes we do different exercises and, water exercises, but it's
not all kids that are being rescued. Well, maybe if you just want to tell what your typical Green Bay triathlon morning is like.
Yeah, so luckily, the triathlon this past year was pretty decent, but in the adult triathlon, we've had 19 saves in a matter of 20 minutes. And that's pretty scary for like a 16, 17-year-old kid to jump in, and there's 3 grown men jumping on top of him. So we've worked really hard at teaching, like throwing noodles to them and teaching them to float on their back, and but yeah.
You would think that people that sign up for a triathlon, which is swim, bike, run, know how to swim. Because it's very clear that it's deep water that they're swimming in. And I think for those people that maybe have that as a physical fitness goal, that they think it's not going to be a big issue, or yeah, I can swim because they were able to swim as a kid. Maybe, and then maybe they focus more on the biking and the running aspect. And then all of a sudden, they get in the water, and if you know how a triathlon works, there are waves of 20, 25, 30 people at a clip. And it's not like swimming by yourself in a lane, in a high school pool.
Or you can put your feet down when you're tired.
Yeah,
That's the other
you're
part.
in an open body of water, and you have at least 19 other people kicking and splashing and elbowing you and kicking you in the face, because, it is a race. And then when that happens out in the deep end, because they have to go multiple times around the platform before they head back, that's where a lot of people panic, because it's not a controlled environment like maybe they did a little bit of training in. And so it's always an interesting sight.
It's fast. It's a fast morning for us, because that's what we do our opening day. We have the triathlon. The kids come on Saturday, and then the adults are on Sunday. And we have the lifeguards, our only senior lifeguards that are able to be out there, and we are chucking noodles and tubes as much as we can, and if that doesn't get to them fast enough, then we jump in. But I also have to think about the safety of my guards, so jumping in is the last resort. But we had, I think this past year, we had 9, but in years past, we've had 19.
And we have people out there in a rowboat, we have people on a
Kayaks,
paddleboard
yep.
and kayak and different, they're out there in the water,
Right.
with the people, so they can make it even faster.
So is that 9 that you saved
Just
this
the-
year, is that included in the,
That's not
Oh, that's
included in
not
the 28.
Okay.
No, I feel like the triathlon is its own beast,
Yeah.
so I leave that separate. So that would be added, correct, to the 28 that we had, yeah.
okay. I want to go back to the ticket sales. Obviously, with the summer, we've had less number of tickets sold, but there's an increase in dollars. And I was going to ask the same question before. Did we raise something last year, but how is that?
We didn't,
happening?
but sometimes that has to do with who we get to come to the lake. So if we have a lot of non-residents, that's where our numbers come, because they're
Okay.
paying $1 extra. And so we can track how many non-residents we have, and I don't think I have the number of non versus residents here, but I could see the difference if I looked back in my numbers. But that can make the difference number-wise, too.
Typically, it's 20%, right? 20%
20
resident.
resident and 80 non. That's why we have the difference, the dollar difference, because it does make a huge difference for us
Okay.
to have that non-resident fee.
So probably around 4,000 to 5,000 residents go through, and then the rest are non-residents.
Okay.
We do also partner with the Brown County Library, and they have a reading program, and then kids can earn a ticket. And a lot of those kids are coming from Wrightstown and coming from Freedom in those libraries, because, they don't live around here, and so they usually come with a group of friends, and then they bring, their family and stuff like that. So that's why we've partnered with them in hopes that maybe, 2 kids in the family are coming with a ticket, but they're bringing their, mom and dad and all that with them. So it's a good program. I have the numbers here, 718 tickets we had for those library tickets. So it is a good program. We also pair with Parkview and Pioneer and Valley View with their bike to school and their walk to school, and offer them tickets to the pool or the lake for those events too.
Okay.
Well, I think for the summer, we had weather-wise to run a pretty small deficit isn't unexpected. You guys did a great job.
Thanks.
And then just to kind of add on to that comment, I agree. I think they're doing a great job. Lots of information. So we are going to come in short a little bit this summer. So just for my sake of when I'm kind of approving this lake report, or when it's moved, is at what point, like if we have a loss, how many years at a loss are we going to start to look at where we have to increase the price, or we're not, or do you know what I'm saying? Like, when do we decide, okay,
Sure.
year 3 or year 4 of a loss, now we need to make a change so we can flip
Yep.
the tables here? That's all I'm asking
Yep.
is,
So typically, aquatic operations are not a profit-making thing. Swim lessons are. If you take swim lessons and pull them out from everything else, swim lessons make money. when you're talking about this type of operation, typically it's not. It's more of a service. So I think what you're looking at, JC, is more of, and we've been fortunate, we're in actually a better financial position than a permanent pool or water park like in Green Bay, because they have additional, while we put in bioenzyme packs to keep bacteria counts low, which is the way to disinfect a lake, they have to do a chlorinated system. And the expenses for that are astronomically higher, because you also have to have pumps running and constant disinfection and chlorination and filtration. So when I used to do work for City of Green Bay, and even when I was out in California and ran pools out there, I mean, if we were recovering 75% of our program expenses, not the maintenance expenses, but just the program expenses, we were ecstatic. And so, I mean, with the lake, I mean, we are figuring in utilities that all year long, because the chalet is still heated throughout the whole year. We're figuring the cost of water into this, which is, like I said, a little over $20,000. So we're putting in, we're figuring like a gas and electric, as I just said. We're putting in a lot of expenses to see what your true costs are. So
That helps. I mean, I
yeah,
think that
it
helps
really
just
does. So
creating
I think
understanding, 'cause I'm not, I haven't.
no,
an
and it's all right.
aquatic
I mean,
program.
you're learning on this whole thing. So and you can always come up with different ideas. You don't always have to do with what the status quo has been either. So I mean, we can always discuss things, but I think for the type of operation we run, a number of years we break even or make a little bit of money. Losing $1,000 or $2,000 in a particular season is still really good for the, serving the amount of residents that we are serving. I think if we were really, really losing a lot of money every year, or our attendance, dropped dramatically from the 25,000 people that we're still going through, that's when I think, I'd say to the board, we need to take a look at Ashwaubenon Lake type of a thing. But knock on wood, I don't think we're anywhere near that point at this stage in the
Okay.
game.
That's good, that's helpful, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Very good.
Thanks, Mel. Before Mel leaves, and this is, I think, in our benefits report at the end, but I would like to announce that Mel has been voted as is the Young Aquatic Professional of the Year through the Wisconsin Park and Rec Association. So she is getting that award at our state conference coming up in early November in the Wisconsin Dells. But well-deserved.
Thank you.
And she's been on the WPRA board for a number of years now. And on top of all of that, she has just been elected chair-elect of the aquatic section for the state association. So she's got her fingers in a lot of things.
I got my plate full.
Congratulations.
Yes, you do.
Headed to Bayport and Ashwaubenon are swimming against each other tonight, so headed off to the pool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, Mel.
Okay, move on to Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball Tournament Team Policy.
So we had received a number of concerns over the last couple of years just regarding some Ashwaubenon youth baseball policies about cutting kids, and when is it appropriate to cut kids, when is it not in the league, but again, this is tournament team. So this is just more of an information thing for you. We've kind of got things figured out for the next year, but we worked with AYB and had a couple of meetings with them, their board meetings, and had some very good open discussion on what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, at least as it regards to the village funding a co-sponsored organization. And AYB at the time, for their tournament team, And it's a challenge, because you have to go with, how many kids are there, how many kids are on a team, and how do you rotate kids in and out, or do you just have one team? They were working, there were some instances where kids were being cut off of the tournament team as young as, I think, 3rd grade, maybe even 2nd grade. And we just felt that was a little too young. That'd be more appropriate. And again, it's just tournament team, not league, because anyone can play league, and everyone does play league. But tournament team, there's ways to still get kids involved without being cut. So right now, I think everyone is able to make a tournament team up until at least 13U, which is kind of the point that we decided we'd give it a try and see how that works. Again, this was done a couple of weeks ago at the meeting, after a couple meetings with Ashwaubenon Youth Baseball. And I don't know if anyone has received any comments or thoughts on it. I know a couple people have. A couple board members I know received calls from some parents, one way or the other way. But I attached what the current, the recommendation is, which was adopted at the last AYB board meeting, just for everyone's information. So. I'm just trying to, it's a constant thing in flux of working with the co-sponsor, because there's always new board members, and then, there's highs and lows, and the numbers ebb from year to year on how many kids are involved in certain age groups and on tournament team and so on and so forth. Some years there's, and in soccer for the older age groups, they've had to partner with Alloway and some of the other soccer clubs to go in a league so that those age groups can play games, because there's not enough within the village to fill out a particular age group to have a league. So there's always things that are going on with every co-sponsored organization, but it's just something that I wanted to bring forward to make everyone aware of, that was a pretty big change. And I don't know if everyone's real happy. Some people think there should be no cuts ever on tournament team, and some people think tournament team should it's a tournament team, there should be cuts. But this was kind of a middle ground. And just to let you know that it happened. We could talk about it more if anyone desires, but there's more of an FYI.
Okay. I haven't heard anything, so I read it through it and everything. It seemed like it was thought through, hopefully.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Okay. We'll move on to 8C, which is project submitted for the 2020 budget.
So working on the 2020 budget, administration has what was turned in. I met with them back in early summer, actually, on potential projects, and then got the go-ahead to get costing on a number of things based on what they thought might be available. So what you have in front of you are the bigger items, not the daily line item budget, but the projects that were submitted for Park and Recreation that will be under discussion, over the course of the next month and a half or so. And I'll just take them by bullet point. A number of these are in our corp plan. There's a number of them that are not in the corp plan, the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. So one of the things that was submitted was the Fort Howard Park restroom. I will be honest, that's probably going to be pushed yet another year. And the reason being, after discussions, it might be best, we're going to have to probably work with an architect and actually make blueprints before we see what some specific costs are. We got cost estimates from Best Built. We got cost estimates from Corrigan Structures, and they varied, but they're only best guessing it because we don't have like a blueprint of what needs to be built. I can tell them, the size or dimensions, but not necessarily that's all they have to go with. But if you remember, one of the things, and you'll see it also in a lot of the information coming up in the corp comments, is a splash pad. And one of the things that we've had is a potential project going into Fort Howard Park is a splash pad. So if we're going to build a restroom, I don't want to build the splash pad, if that even gets funded, a couple of years from now and say, well, now we got to build an addition onto the restroom to house the valves and, the blowout lines, and the controller and things like that for a potential splash pad. So all of this really needs to be incorporated into the restroom, so we're not like spending more money that, boy, if we only would have spent another $5,000 to increase the size of this room another 2 feet by 3 feet, it would have held everything we needed it to hold for the splash pad, you know what I mean? So I think that particular project, it might be pushed back, but what I'm hoping for is that we get to go ahead to actually have blueprints, and we'd sit down with an architect and say, okay, here's what we would need for a splash pad, here's what we need for a room. We incorporate that into the building, how much would it cost to stub in the lines, the water and sanitary lines to the restroom wouldn't be sized just for the restroom. They would need to be sized for the splash pad as well. That way you don't have to put in more lines, and you don't have to dig up old lines. So I'm kind of banking on the future that this might happen in the future, having a splash pad. Again, that will be up to the village board and what dollars are available. But I think with some of these nuances that we're working on, that part of the project is what may be going forward. Again, that still needs to be talked about in the budget deliberations. Ashwaubenon Park Maintenance Storage Building. If you've driven into Ashwaubenon Park, it's that yellow storage building on the right when you first came in. Basically, that's a yellow tin pole building that was pulled up off of the yard on Cormier when the village offices were on Cormier, kind of where Gordman's are, or is. And it was hauled over to Ashwaubenon and just set down on a pile of gravel. And that's what we have. There's no electricity. It's a gravel floor that has a lot of animals in it, and we've had staff literally fall through the floor, gravel that looks like it's just gravel because woodchucks have burrowed underneath and created tunnels. There's holes in the building. We're asking for a little bit bigger, but not anything fancy. I'm just looking for a better storage building that has lighting, that will suit our needs, that is safe to store stuff in. So it's time. Be happy to go over there and show anybody what I'm talking about if they need to, or if they'd like to see it, but that has been submitted. Ashwaubenon Park entry sign. So we've got the entry sign going across the bridge. Vintage 1974. It looks very national park-like. It looks nice, however, that it is starting to become, it's near the point of being unsafe just due to the weather and the wood deterioration, where that will be coming down next year. We have to take that down. So then the question is, well, boy, we're having a lot more stuff happening at Ashwaubenon. I think it's really changed in the last 5 or 10 years of the amount of things happening there and in the user groups and everything that's going on. And so then we talked about, well, what kind of sign do we want for the future? And I don't know, did that ever get in? Picture of those, I think that might have been missed.
Not in there.
So I've got a number of park signs that kind of look like a national park type sign, where there's a LED section where the wording would be in there. And so I'm trying to mix current technology with the old school look. And so I'm starting to just work with a particular sign company in the village, and just to give me some kind of an ideas of what could be done. And that particular sign would be, if approved by the village board, it would kind of go out in front right at the entryway where the current wood sign is right now, the ground mount sign, basically. But again, I'm trying to, my vision is to, and I wish I had those pictures for you, I'm trying to mesh, old school park sign with some of the newer technology of having an LED board on it, which would be nice because you could advertise lake events on it, food truck rally, special events, Baseball tournaments, welcome to the 10U baseball. There could be all kinds of things that are put on that sign with all the events that are happening out there.
Rick, so you're talking about taking down the old sign and then putting up a new sign closer to the road.
Correct. The overhead sign across the bridge has to come down.
It'll be totally gone.
Totally gone.
Okay.
Melody mentioned the lake diving boards. Those have been submitted for consideration. Pioneer Park restrooms, we had to call Twirl for emergency situations out there multiple times this summer. We've had to call them every year for probably the last 3 or 4 years. And, you know, if you buy a home toilet right now, which is what is in all the stalls at Pioneer Park, they are water conservation toilets. You know, toilets have changed in the last, 10 or 20 years with water conservation. There's literally not enough water or power for the amount those toilets are used for, hundreds of girls there per night, or guys in the guys' bathroom, to flush through the pipes. And the pipes are continually getting clogged. And the toilets, because they're just the regular pull jiggly handle thing, just like you have in your home, they're continually getting broken. And we're replacing things constantly, and it's time we get commercial toilets out there, with the regular flush things that, just like in the community center or here at Village Hall, that's what we're looking at. And so that changeover has been submitted. I want to say the toilets are probably, I can't remember, somewhere with the new plumbing and the new water line that would need to come in, they're probably somewhere around $7,000 or $8,000, I'm thinking, if I'm remembering right, to change all of them out to commercial toilets. We had to pull out the merry-go-round at Fort Howard Park, so I have submitted a merry-go-round for Fort Howard Park. A lot of times we're able to we redid the one at Argonne, and we've redone the one at Sand Acres, but this one was so rusted underneath that it could not be repaired. Because we a lot of times have them sandblasted and even have pieces of metal fabricated if something breaks. But the one at Fort Howard was beyond that point. So a new merry-go-round is probably around $8,000. And so we submitted a new merry-go-round for Fort Howard Park. That's not something I could just take out of my regular park budget to replace. Back on the athletic bleacher replacement program, a set of those. Melody and I worked with the Ashwaubenon Lions Club, and I want to always try and give props when a group is willing to work with us, as many Ashwaubenon groups are, but the Lions have agreed to fund what's called a Moby mat. It's a handicap mat that will go from the chalet down to the lake, and right now we have a rubber mat, which is basically like what you would see in a restaurant that people stand on. And what was happening is wheelchairs, they have those little wheels on the back to keep from flipping back, were getting caught in the honeycomb pattern, which literally made someone tip over in their wheelchair this summer, which is when we said we need something different. And so there's different products out in the market that the state of Wisconsin is using in their national parks that have beaches or lakes. Bell did a presentation to the Ashwaubenon Lions, and they agreed to fund it, and I want to say that's probably about a $6,500 donation. And so I want to say thank you to the Ashwaubenon Lions. That was going to be submitted as part of the budget, but in the meantime, we got that Lions donation. Ashwaubenon Sports Complex Plaza. This is actually out of probably TIF money if this one goes forward. It would be to redo the plaza area facing from the ice center, facing the softball diamonds, basically blow that up, make that much more maintenance friendly. Because people, I gotta be honest, not a lot of people use the plaza. I mean, there's 3 directions and sets of steps all over the place. All these flower beds that collect snow and need to be maintained, which we just aren't able to do. It doesn't look good because of the high level of maintenance that's needed out there. So it would make the entryway a lot more simple. It would also create a roadway between the two parking lots. So you would just need to drive from one parking lot to the other instead of driving all the way back out to the main road and looping all the way to Fernando and around. Chris, I know you've spent plenty of time out at the sports complex.
Yeah.
You probably know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
exactly. I don't know. Well, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't know how it was ever built the way it was,
Right,
quite honestly.
yeah.
It's like it doesn't make, yeah. It's kind of like someone was playing a bad joke on people.
Right, yeah.
Let's see if they can figure out how to get to the other parking lot. That's not a cheap fix. It's probably about a $350,000 project. But we have a short window of when that might be able to be done, using TIF dollars that are before the TIF gets closed out. So that, again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what is proposed. And I've been working with Rettler on a new plan for that one.
Is there, I heard through the grapevine that they're trying to fund for another sheet of ice. Is that true?
St. Norbert College, the idea was floated about 2 years ago about possibly building a fourth sheet of ice. It would be on the south side of the building. It would also, due to the size, and it would strictly be for St. Norbert College. So, and due to the size of it, it would actually encroach onto our tennis courts. We would need to give up our tennis courts, which is a whole nother discussion. But Delier's construction, and Phil Delier is on the Cornerstone Ice Center board, so he just kind of worked and drew up some basic plans, which he put in the Cornerstone Ice Center, just to spur interest, per se. So a lot of people think that this is happening, but it's not really happening. St. Norbert College has, at this time, they state no interest or desire to spend their own funds on putting in a fourth sheet of ice. So that means a fourth sheet of ice, the whole thing would need to be fundraised. So we're probably talking, what was the Resch Center? Because I'm sure it'd be very similar to the Resch addition. That's got to be somewhere between 4 and 6 million at least, right?
Yeah, as I recall.
Somewhere around there, because you need to
Yeah.
put in new chillers and everything like that, just for that sheet of ice, bleachers, viewing stands, the boards. So is it going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. We have been in contact with the Ice Center multiple times. In fact, I just talked with Don probably last week. There are no plans to start a fundraising campaign for that fourth sheet of ice.
Okay.
So as such, we are proceeding forward with our plans to redo this, and then if a fourth sheet of ice comes forward, they will have to do and pay for anything that needs to be done and integrate their sheet of ice with how we have done our upgrades.
Okay.
Or if they don't like our upgrades, then they will submit plans to redo the upgrades at their expense. And that includes relocating tennis courts.
Okay.
So we've got that as a potential discussion point that we've been working on moving forward. And then that is with what, TIF 4, I believe, and then the Ashwaubenon River Trail Extension, that's probably going to be TIF 3. That is basically at Alden Station. If you guys know, some of you know what Alden Station is, it's the old Schneider National Truck Yard. So that housing development, we will continue with the Ashwaubenon River Trail around the exterior of that and kind of run it up the side of the creek. And then we're also looking at, we're going to be meeting with, we've already met with Grafe, and we're going to be meeting with, I believe, McMahon possibly to talk about costing and maybe doing some preliminary concepts on a bridge going from the Alden Station lot, across Ashwaubenon Creek into Ashwaubenon Park. But there's all kinds of, that's not for certain yet, because there's all kinds of issues with water flow and access to homes back there, and what's doable and what's not, and DNR ramifications with driving pillars into the waterway. It's a big deal. So at this point, we're talking about the Ashwaubenon River Trail extension just being the trail around the Schneider National Truck Yard and bumping that up onto Broadway. But we're also we're starting the exploration process of, is it even feasible to talk about having a pedestrian bridge going across the creek there? So those are the items that have been submitted. So that's kind of things that I've been working on as part of the project list. Any questions on those?
One of the things that I talked to you about, and I know that it was mentioned in the court plan as far as a outdoor ice rink.
I see a lot of that, and I talked with the city of Green Bay on what they do. I worked for the city of Green Bay for a number of years prior to coming back home here to Ashwaubenon. So it all depends on how they do it. So a little bit of history. We used to have ice rinks. We used to have ice rinks in Ashwaubenon on multiple parks. The guys used to flood them and used to maintain them through the fire hydrants and fire hoses, and some of them used to have boards that were used by old hockey type boards and ice skating boards, the side boards that were used at the old community center when we used to have the ice skating rinks over there. When GBHA, Green Bay Area Youth Hockey, used to have their program at the Clipstein. I don't know if you guys even know that used to happen back in the late 60s, early 70s. They used to have the ice skating rinks over there. So we had inherited all those boards once GBHA started skating at the Brown County Arena. And they used to use those for some hockey rinks and ice rinks, just as barriers type of a thing. Those are long gone. So when Cornerstone Ice Center was built around 2000, the next couple of years were very warm winters. I think the next 3 years. They tried it for 3. And a lot of effort was put into making ice rinks where we only had a couple of good ice skating days. And so with the amount of time and energy and effort, because the guys are still plowing, so the ice rinks can only be made once all the plowing is done. It was decided to do away with the ice rinks, that if people wanted to open skate, they would go over to the Cornerstone Ice Center, and because they had open skate over there year-round. Full circle, now people are saying, gosh, it would be great to have an ice skating rink again in Ashwaubenon. Well, a lot of those ice skating areas, typically, there's a little bit of a depression in the ground with like a rim around it, and you can still see the old one at Smith. We never took it out of Smith Park. It's on the north side of the park, right behind the homes. What you would do is you'd get plastic liners, you put it on the grass, otherwise the ice starts to get moldy. You lay the liner down and you basically fill up the ice, fill up that depression with, in the ring with water. And that's how you make an ice rink. That's how Green Bay does it, that's how all the other communities typically do it. Many of the communities, just because of temperatures, they have their guys come in at night. And they do the ice, if it's a super cold winter, you can do it during the day, as long as there's not a snowstorm and sidewalks that need to be plowed. A lot of places are trying to do it during the day, but typically they need to have crews come in at night when the temperature is colder and the ice can freeze. That is typically what the expense is, and I know, Mark, you've asked me to try and get expenses for that. It's
I can get some donations for it, that's
Yeah.
why I'm asking.
It was hard to quantify because we just don't know how, number one, the manpower it takes to make a rink and maintain a rink is not small. It takes a couple of guys and you constantly have to be putting new layers of water on, constantly. So the discussion is, or needs to be, whether or not, that is something that needs to be. The water cost is, might be a couple $1,000s if we, or much less if we only have one rink. But it's more of the manpower that it takes to maintain that rink, and whether or not that's something that we want to continue to look at. But I mean, I have general information, and people want hockey. Well, hockey boards aren't cheap. I mean, you got to build them and you got to support them because people check people into the boards. And those, and I don't know what donations you're talking about, Mark, is that where
Well, they're interested in helping maintain it, construct it, fund it, all the above. So that's how strong of a group that there is out there that wants these things already. So I mean, they just want to see more opportunities for kids to skate. And they've grew up skating in the parks just
Yep.
like me and you, and
Yep.
that's trying to keep the.
I walked about 100 yards out my back door to Gillis Park. They used to flood the baseball diamond at Gillis Park, and that's where I skated a lot.
Yeah.
And then I tried hockey for 1 year over at Clipstein through to the hockey league, and
Yeah.
found out that hockey wasn't my sport.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
So, I mean, if we get those numbers, I mean, if it's something we can still do this year, I would,
there's
I mean, they-
2 spots that can potentially do it. I want to say 1 spot. Smith is the only spot that still has that ring where you could just lay the plastic down, flood it, and
right,
good to go. Pioneer, for those of you who don't know, the shelter at Pioneer has that stove inside of it, kind of that old stove. That was the actual warming hut for the ice rink that was in between the tennis courts and diamond number 3 and 4. Now, that ring has been taken out because that is the warm-up area for softball all summer long. So if we built a ring there, then we'd have to take that ring down, you know, because we can't have a giant ring with, you know, raised a foot higher, you know, obviously during softball season. And so if we're going to try one anywhere, even though we've got that little warming building at Pioneer, I'm probably going to say we'd want to try it at Smith. And that's,
it's fine. Just so
That's
if you
even
get some numbers or something, then I can approach them and see what they say.
okay.
If it's something feasible for you guys or village.
Yep.
But with the amount of comments that are in the court plan and when they spurred the conversation with me here a month or so ago, you know, I didn't think it was gonna,
You know,
Take an act of God to make
and
this
we're
happen.
going to go over the core plan next, just in terms of setting the stage for the next meeting is when we'll really start to get into the meat of it. Yeah,
it's an entry-level thing. I mean,
Yeah.
right now, I mean, just
Yeah.
to try it to see how it goes too. So I mean, that's where it's at.
okay. Other questions on projects?
Nothing? Okay, let's move on to the court plan projects. How do we want to proceed here, Rex, with this? Because there's a lot of information that we
Yep.
gotta,
So here's the thing. So the first couple pages are all of the comments that were taken from online. Basically, David cut and paste a lot of the online thing into this format, so they'd be easy to read for everybody. You know, what everyone said about different parks, and some of them are maintenance issues. We're not dealing with maintenance issues. Those go to me. And then some of these actually have already been corrected, some of them. But we're looking at, again, projects and amenities. That's the main thing. So you got to pull out of there, you know, you need to fix the playground equipment at Waterford. You know, it's looking ratty. Well, does that mean when do we, Waterford's getting kind of long in the tooth, you know, so we're probably going on about 20 years out for Waterford's playground equipment, roughly. So within a couple of years, you know, we probably will look at replacing that playground equipment. And so then how does that fit in the schedule of projects compared to all the other things that people would like to see that they've put in their surveys? So again, the first couple of pages are what was gleaned from the online. And then you know what, I just told Sue, I said, you know what, we don't have that many hard copy surveys, photocopy them all. So you've got all of the hard copy surveys as well that were turned in for you to look at. So what we will want to do, and then at the very end, if you see these colored sheets here, this is the old corp plan. If you take a look at the first page, on page 59 of your packet, there's a lot of stuff that have been crossed off. almost everything has been crossed off except going down to 2017. There's still a couple projects there. And on the back side, on page 60, that's kind of where it picks up, and even some of those projects have been crossed off. So what we'll want to do is we'll want to make like another kind of 10-year plan, and then each year we want to have a certain amount of projects financially that we think the village might be able to afford. You know, if the budgets are acceptable still, and we will want to try and plug those in and prioritize what we will submit for budget consideration from year to year to year to year to year. So what I need you to do, how does this all work? I'd like to start this then, probably the November meeting. I don't know if we'll have a December one, but I'd like to at least start this in November. Is take a look at this, and in your mind, and then on paper for each of you, kind of put, here's what I think based on some of these comments, and from my experiences and from talking to people in the community, here's what I think, maybe here's 3 or 4 projects I think we should do in 2021, and here's a couple things I think we should do in 2022, and basically you're going for 10 years starting in 2021, because 2020 next year is already going to be done by the time we do this. And so a 10-year plan, so I need you to start doing that. And then what we'll do is we'll come together, we'll probably do our regular meeting in here, if there's anything to talk about, and then recess into the boardroom, where we can talk a little bit closer and eye to eye, and just talk about, you know, what about this park, what about that park, let's do this, let's do that. Oh, I think this one, maybe I think we should do this before this because of the neighborhood it's in, or there's, you know, higher usage, that type of a thing. And then eventually, that's how we get to our kind of our 10-year plan for the corporate plan.
Is there, going through all these comments here before we rank, start doing that, does it make sense to have staff just disseminate these things into projects? Like if there's, I'll take an example, if there's an ice rink, if there's several comments on that, make an ice rink, is there, and take out the maintenance things out of here so that we're all talking the same language, make the projects, there might be 10 comments on one project in here. And this-
I mean, I think you need to ask your fellow people whether, how they would like to see it done. And then we will, I mean, if you don't like how the format that it's in, if you don't think
No.
it's,
Take the projects that have been commented on this past year and make those items.
give me an example.
Rex, I think what Mark is trying to say, I went through all this before I came to the board meeting, and with other needs assessments that I've done from the public, I think it behooves us to take a look at, you were talking about actual projects in terms of the core, and there's items in here in terms of just repair. Is it possible for your staff to pull out the repair projects that really you don't want to see
Sure,
in a core plan? Pull all those things out so we're not having to thumb
Just-
through and look at all of that, and then
just
have
some-
a
Yeah, no,
list
I
of,
tell you what we can do. Give me a week or two to do that, and then I will email that to all of you. We'll pull the maintenance items out of there and just give you the comments on the project, so you know, so everyone's comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, so if there's 10 comments on outdoor skating rink,
Well, a lot of them are like, we need more wood chips at Waterford. I'll
Pull that out.
Pull that out. And oh, you know what? There's too much trash over at Smith Park basketball courts.
correct.
Let me pull those comments out, so you just have, see, for the corp plan, because that's how we did the survey, all those comments will need to go into the plan. So that's why I presented them to you as a whole. But for discussion purposes about making a capital plan for the next 10 years, I'll pull all those out and just give you the project comments. And then those, that's what you will be ranking.
okay.
And then,
Makes sense.
is it possible, because the the remainder of the past plan is on computer. Is it possible to only create a list of those things that have not been addressed yet and pull out all of the line through items?
Yeah, I mean, I
which we
can
don't
cut and
need?
paste this stuff and just
Okay.
delete. I mean, you can see on here, you know, what, I think it's good to see the history of what's been done in the past and what parks have gotten things recently, you know, in the last 5 or 10 years. That's part of the reason why I didn't do that on this one, because I think it's important. So if, you know, 5 people want something at a particular park, it's like, well, we just take a look at this. We just did this project there and that project there, and we still got these 4 parks that have never had anything done to them. So, I mean, that's all part of the, you know what I mean?
That's fine.
Because
I get it.
I'm a little concerned, I don't, because certain parks have more vocal residents. That doesn't necessarily mean that those parks are the ones that should be getting all the attention. And I hate to say it, but I mean, that's, you know, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how many comments we got on Argonne Park, you know, at our last court meeting, but that playground equipment needed to be done. And we knew that. And I think it's important that history is shown so we don't overbuild the particular park at the expense of not doing anything at some of our smaller parks that maybe don't have a lot of local residents supporting them.
Do you want us to individually prioritize by parks?
So basically, just write out 10 years, starting with 2021. And out of here, pick 3, 4, 5 projects a year and kind of plug them into that 10-year plan. So the ones that you think are the most important should be the ones that happen in 2021, and so on down the line. And then we will, from there, I mean, we can talk about how to do this for like 3 meetings. This is just how I think it would be best. And then once everyone has some ideas, then we can get more into it, you know, when we recess into a smaller room.
Even if you just put them in the order that you think that they should go, and not necessarily put them into a year, and let us, you know, we can go over that in the year then.
Yeah,
You know
this
what I
is
mean?
not anything for me to be looking at. It's just something so you can prioritize some of your things. Here's what I would like to see, you know, here's what Deborah would like to see for the next, you know, 5 years. Here are my priorities. And then you'll be able to take that information into the room when we start to actually plug those projects as a whole into the different years.
Looking at what we've done the past 10 years, some parks are more needy than others are. So should we address that, or should we just say, I'd like to see this as a whole to be done?
That's going to be up to you, because I don't want to tell you how to do it.
Okay.
I mean, some
Okay.
parks are busier, and yeah, they deserve more attention because they are busier. But by the same token, some parks that aren't that busy have not had an update in a long time. And at some point, those need to be done. You know what I mean? Even though they might not be serving as many people, those still deserve attention as well. So you've got to figure that out in terms of what you think is right. And that's where we kind of do the give and take during our deliberations of where to place the projects.
So kind of what we've done in the past, but we're just going to be a little more intimate in the
Yeah.
boardroom. You just want us to do a
Yep,
little
and
bit of
that's-
homework.
and that's where, when we did the last one, that worked out really well.
Yeah.
Because it was just, rather than me facing you guys, I mean, everyone could see each other and listen to each other a little bit better. You know, it'll still be recorded. Maybe not on, you know,
TV.
audio, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be recorded on audio anyway.
Okay.
That will be for the next meeting. In the meantime, if you make that consolidation of the survey,
Yep, absolutely.
you could get that to us, mail it to us, so we got
Yep.
that to consider for the next meeting.
Mail or email, Dean, how would you like it?
You can email me.
Okay. Everyone good with an email? As a document? Okay.
All right, Agenda E, discussion and possible action on department reports.
All right, so you've got the September and October benefit or department reports. Youth football is actually winding up this coming Saturday. We've got about 134 kids participating in that. Argonne Park Playground equipment, if you haven't seen it, the structure is in. Finally, it's been one of our longest playground builds because the weather has been absolutely miserable. The things were getting stuck. The guys literally had gobs of mud on their boots. We were throwing wood chips in there just so we wouldn't sink down into the mud. It was god-awful to do, but they got it done. And we actually put in drain tile. We realized real quickly this park needs drain tile around the whole playground area, and we tried to move it out to the north a little bit to keep the water out of there, because the water's still got to go into the basin that was dug out where the equipment goes into. But that's done. We just have to remove a dirt pile and, excuse me, some leftover wood chips, which we'll be bringing over to Canterbury.
It looks really nice, Rex, and my wife and I walked the dog all the way by there, and there's already families using it, but especially yesterday with the Packer game, about 2-3 hours before the game, we walked up and down the pathway, and there were multiple families
Good.
using the park and using the playground.
Good. I'm sure they're using that dirt pile, too.
No, I didn't see anybody on there.
It's like, we got to get rid of that dirt pile. Smith Park sidewalk has been poured. I'm surprised we haven't gotten any complaints because we have not been able to do landscaping and filling in the dirt areas that were dug out around the sidewalk. For the same reason, it's been too wet to get a tractor into the park, and all of our time has been working on this playground. So hopefully next week. A lot of fall classes going on, a lot of exercise classes. Our Dance and Pom program has over 70 kids enrolled. We have our second annual Senior Oktoberfest dinner dance this Thursday at the community center with the Sugar Bush Boys providing polka. If you watched Monday Night Football last night, the Sugar Bush Boys, I believe, were actually on TV during Monday Night Football, during some of the pregame ceremonies. But they will be doing the entertainment, the band for the dance tomorrow, or on Thursday night. Aquatics, we talked a little bit about that, obviously, with the lake report. We've got 137 kids enrolled currently in swim lessons. Back to recreation, this isn't on here either, but we've got, I'm fortunate to have such a great staff. David Rohrig was also received an award for from the rec section as Recreation Professional of the Year through the Wisconsin Park and Rec Association. And that's hundreds of people that are able to be thrown into the hat. So I'm very fortunate. We are very fortunate to have good staff on board with us. I got to make sure I give him some good props as well, because he won an award, a wonderful award, just like Melody did. Forestry, Tim is out this week we're behind a little bit. We're grinding out a lot of stumps, and then we've got a lot of trees to plant still for fall planting. That'll be taking place this week and over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks. Trying to get them in before the ground gets too cold. Get those in for the winter season. On a good note, it's not on here, but we received a $15,000 grant that we worked with New Water, which is the Green Bay Met, to plant trees. And so we got $7,500 to purchase trees in 2020 and another $7,500 in 2021. The 3 parks we're going to be doing those in are Ashwaubenon, Argonne, and Smith. Both of those have a very high number of ash trees that we will be losing, and so it's probably best to repopulate those parks as best as possible. So those are the ones that have been targeted for for that grant. We received it. We just got word on the $15,000 grant late last week, so. Questions on anything that is in the department report?
Nothing. Items for next agenda? Anybody?
Core plan.
Corp plan. Yep.
Yep. Just, yeah, to remind everybody, Rex is going to send out an email to everybody, and we got a little bit of homework to do just to be ready for it. So,
Do we have an upgraded status on the dog park? Or is that a dead deal?
We didn't do the dog park. What we did was, we re-advertised in our brochure and let people know that dogs are welcome in like Fort Howard Park and Ashwaubenon Park. They're still able to be walked on a pass-through basis in any of our parks, but we're trying to put more of an emphasis to get the word out that dogs are welcome in Ashwaubenon and Fort Howard, more to try and get rid of some of the geese. Although they've settled in at Clipstein now as well. I've got about 50 of them in there. And they, like, why they hang out in the woods, I've never seen that before, but they do now.
they're just relocating from the other parks.
Yeah, probably because of all the dogs that are being walked, right? But
Are we thinking at all about opening up any other parks?
not at this point, no.
Okay.
No, not at this point. I know De Pere's going through some discussions as well. They don't allow dogs at all in their park, so they're looking at changing some of the rules similar to ours.
Now, do people still need to get any kind of a permit from the village? Like they used to be able to run their dogs to chase the geese out, or is that done now?
They can still do so. I mean, yeah, they still can. And all they do is come to our office and we give them a little card and have at her.
Okay.
Real simple. We don't have them fill out any forms or anything like that. So painless.
Okay.
Basically, we hand them it's more of a set of, Sue, it's more like a set of, I don't want to say rules, but, stay away from congregated areas, try and stay around the perimeter, that type of a thing. Just so to limit the interaction with the general populace and a lot of little kids.
Right.
So we just hand them that and then they're good to go.
Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, everyone.